And I pressed record, so we're live. Good morning, Dr. Karin Petrini. Good to see you.
Good morning. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And I do have your permission to refer to you as Karin now as well, which is really
Of
good, makes it
course,
easier. So,
please.
so thank you for that. So just to give a very little quick sort of backstory, for those who watch my videos and know me and this sort of thing, I was in the UK doing an event, a conference, traveling back to the hotel afterwards, and I heard your interview on BBC Radio 4, and you were talking about your research on the cognitive benefits of, I think you were talking more about the piano was the instrument of
Yeah.
choice. But then I think at the end of your interview, you sort of dropped in that you were a drummer. And I thought, wow, this is something, because I'm a drummer, or I play the drums or play with the drums. And so I think I tracked you down, and I just thought I was so intrigued by your work that I thought it'd be great to speak with you. So the purpose of today is to really, I guess, explain, understand, and showcase your work and research. So thank you for being on the call. So
No worries.
to start us off, please give the people listening a quick introduction of you, where you're from, and how you ended up at the University of Bath in the UK as well.
So I'm clearly Italian. And by the way, spoiler alert, I wouldn't identify myself as a drummer because I'm not good enough.
Okay.
but I do love it.
Yeah.
And I started, actually my academic career and my focus in research was mostly about vision.
Okay.
And what happened is that during my PhD, I realized that what I was focusing on, at least for me personally, was a bit limited.
Okay.
Because when we move in our environment and we, function as humans every day, we actually receive a huge amount of information, and we use all our sensory systems, vision and sound and touch and smell and taste, everything, to really make judgments and do tasks from the simplest task to the most complex. We need to pool all this information together, and our brain needs to make sense of it. And so this kind of made me shift my interest when I came to UK, and I did my first postdoc here. Actually in Glasgow, which is amazing for music, funny enough.
Absolutely, yeah, okay.
And so I was really interested in understanding more how the brain cope with all this amount of information, and how manage to make a decision on what information should go together and what maybe should be discarded or ignored, to make us better performer. And the thing is, there is nothing as good as music, I think, as a natural multisensory training activity, because a musician often need to read the notation, and even those that don't use notation, right, they need to look at other musicians, to look what they are doing, to be in sync and on tempo and so on. And they need to listen to the sound they produce, get feedback, adjust their actions, touch the instrument, and so on and so on. And so these two interests came together, and were the focus of my first postdoc in Glasgow. Then I moved down to London, where I looked more at other things, always in the multisensory kind of aspect, but more developmental research. So work with children and understanding what happened when maybe a sensory information is missing, like vision. And then finally I end up in Bath, which has been lovely since 2014 now.
Okay, so you've done the full UK tour pretty much then.
Yes. As you can see, I was attracted more and more south toward the sun.
Yeah, exactly, but it's slightly warmer. It's slightly warmer. Okay.
Yeah.
So this sort of research then, if I might, sort of evolved then really from your research into how we deal with the world, and then gravitated towards. So is it, and just it is a very strange question, but is there a type of music particularly that is better for this? Is it, you know, classical, or is it rock, or doesn't it really matter?
So, like, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I did a lot of different work with different musicians.
Yeah.
Clearly, I started with drummers.
Of course. Well, of course. There you go. Yeah, we
Due
do
to my
qualify.
bias.
Quite right too. Quite right.
No, there is also a reason why we started with drummers, and the reason is that looking at information from the body and the sound produced, drummers have a lot of movement in the upper body that can be processed as information, which is not the case of a lot of other instruments, which are quite constrained in the movement of the body. But also the other reason is that for drumming, tempo and rhythm is fundamental. And so because we were focusing on how the brain uses temporal correspondence between sound and vision and touch and so on to understand how the brain works, then drumming was kind of an obvious choice in a way. And so I started with drumming, but then I work with saxophonists and I work with pianist, and so the results were always similar. Clearly, depending on what you are focusing on. For example, if you want to increase and improve a cognitive ability that is linked to temporal process of the information, then probably drumming has an advantage, but it's just a quantitative advantage. So you will have the same with other instruments, it's just that it might be a bit more with drumming. So what depends on what function you're targeting, what you are interested in improving, but all the instruments are, you know, fantastic.
So any musical instrument, but really, but the sound, it's really the combination of sight, sound, the movement and coordination that brings
Think about the amount of information and work that we are doing when we play music, right? We need to coordinate our movements. We need to receive, you know, produce sound, receive feedback from the sound, correct our actions if there is a mistake, read the notation, look at other musicians around us. Clearly, I am not at the level to do that, but you know, people like at your level play with other.
You haven't heard me play. You haven't heard me play.
Any musical instrument, whatever you like, whatever a person likes, will make a difference.
And so, and I have a question that Lynn, my wife, has asked me to ask you. I'll ask in a second or two.
Absolutely.
So that's my excuse. But if somebody listening to this or watching this video and saying, okay, what does it do? So in your research, I assume you've started with a person, you've measured their abilities, if that's the right term, and then you've done the work with them. So how does that work? How do you start? What do you get a subject, or what happens to them during this process?
So actually at the very, very start of my research, both in terms of resources, when you want to start to gather evidence, if it matters at all what you are studying, and there is a point to continue, you usually do comparative or cross-sectional research, as we call it, which I will explain now, which means I compare musicians with a lot of years of music training to non-musicians, which has not this training. And the reason why is because it's the easiest and faster way to understand, are there differences in cognitive ability between these groups? And do they reflect differences in the brain? Both at the level of structural brain as well as functional brain, right? So does, for example, an area that is important for multisensory integration, for example, in the brain, differ in the level of activation and involvement when we process different information. And so started to do this study, and I did a lot of them, both by just asking, you know, like behavioral responses.
Yeah.
When practically looking at stimuli that had vision and sound and so on.
Okay.
But also I looked at the brain. So I use fMRI, so magnetic resonance imaging, and looked at how the brain activity changed in different regions in these two groups, so that is musician and no musicians. Tell me if I need to explain and something doesn't come.
I'm fascinated. If he's making sense to me, I guarantee it'll be fine.
And so those studies were the first. Clearly, I wasn't the only researcher doing this. By all means, there were other labs, and there is a huge group in Montreal that have done amazing work on this even before me. But there is now a lot of evidence that you know, like there is like a difference, a really significant difference between how the brain is structured as well as the brain works in musician compared to non-musician. And so with that in mind, so there were a lot of open question remaining, which are questions that all the researcher in this field has, which is, what is the egg and the chicken? Because
yes, absolutely, yeah.
Because you know, looking at musicians with many years of practice against non-musician gives you a first sense of things and whether it's worth pursuing. But it doesn't really tell you it's really music that is the cause of these changes, because it could be that these people were already genetically predisposed.
Yes.
And that's why they became musicians.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't actually music, because music was the consequence, right?
Yes. Okay, absolutely.
And so that's why I moved on. And that's the work that, for example, I talked during my interview in the radio. We started training no musician from scratch, where you know, they didn't become musician, and we made sure that all the participants had similar, you know, characteristics in terms of education, socioeconomical status, etc., to make sure there are no other confounding, you know, reason that could explain a difference and so on. And we divided the participants randomly. We assigned them to 3 separate groups. So one was trained with the piano, like every week for 11 weeks.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, but short if you think about and then instead one group just listen to the music, the same music that the people that were training were learning, so to control very, very well what people were exposed to. And then like a control group that didn't do anything, and they were just doing their own work, or you know, studying during that hour every week. But everything else was kept the same for all the groups. And we got a lot of different measures. So we got a measure of ability to process sound and visual information. Then we got the ability to recognize emotion from different stimuli. Then we got like measure of anxiety, stress, and depression. To compare before and after, and also mood and so on. So we really did a huge study. Unfortunately, as many has been affected by the pandemic, and so we didn't manage to, you know, test as many people as we wanted, but enough to look at, you know, a pretty obvious trend and significant trend, showing that only the people that were training with the piano, but not the other 2 groups, had the benefit and became better at processing sound and visual information already after a few weeks.
Just after 11 weeks, which is not in musical terms, not a long time.
No,
showed up. Incredible.
No, which is quite amazing. And also we found exactly the same result by doing this study that we found by comparing musicians and non-musicians, right?
Okay.
And so now we can say a bit more with our heart in hand that, you know, is music the key.
Yes. Okay. So
Key role.
it isn't that sort of predisposition you mentioned before. This can be trained. We can, maybe the wrong words I'm using, but we can train the brain to adapt and become more beneficial to us.
Absolutely.
That's
And
encouraging.
yeah. And the encouraging things is that there are very few studies that have done this, you know, RCT we call it, design, that is training, is a random control trial, that is, you are training people that don't, you know, in our case, never play music before, apart from the school one, you know, the mandatory curriculum. And practically, like, you randomly assign participant, and then you look and control, have a very controlled design with we had 2 control groups. Usually there is only one, for example. And I think all the other one that I found focus on children, and the ability of children to improve in IQ, cognitive ability, spatial abilities, memory, and so on and so on. There are few also with children, so there are very few of these studies, but our study was kind of the first looking at adults and asking the question, is it too late?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what I'm thinking. I've got a few more grey hairs. I'm thinking, is it too late to catch up, you know?
And the answer seems to be no, it's not. So, you know.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
So when people they're learning the piano, learning music for 11 weeks, and they have that tangible benefit in that sort of 3-month period. If they then don't continue playing the piano or learning, do these cognitive benefits, do they taper off, or does it stay sort of fixed?
That's a great question. And this is one of the issue that there is with research. Very few studies have a follow-up kind of check. So we did a follow-up. It's still limited because we did a 2 weeks follow-up. So we test them again after 2 weeks without music, and this because of time constraints and because of you know, the pandemic. But the effect lasted at least 2 weeks. So they didn't go down very quickly. However, based on other evidence that is, you know, available from other research, I would expect that if you don't continue, even just, you might not need to do it every week. You might just do it every 2 weeks, but to maintain it, for example. But if you don't continue, you stop completely, especially after such a short period, I would predict that it might go back to baseline.
So
to how it was before.
So really, so anybody sort of watching, listening to this, and they are, because I think, you know, I'm doing what I do, I see people who are they're stressed. Life is stressful. Going through COVID was stressful, and you know, the business is changing, the work is changing, and they say they want to get some more control over their lives, if you like, and have this interesting what you said about stress and depression. What can they do? You know, they're certainly listening. What's the best thing they could do? Is it to buy a little keyboard? Is it to get some, you know, some wooden spoons and start hitting the drum? What's a great place to start with this?
So first of all, I forgot to say that even if it's quite preliminary result, we found a significant decrease in anxiety, depression, and stress after the end of the training. And this was more evident for the training group than the music listening and the control. Also, as we know, also music listening has this effect and trend. But it was interesting to see that actually the people that play the piano had a higher or stronger decrease or reduction in this negative, you know, connotation of mood and so on. And so, like, what I would say is there is, especially nowadays, so many opportunities. So for example, even if you don't have much time, or like you don't have the resources to go to, you know, music lessons, you can self-teach yourself using YouTube, and there are an amazing amount of fantastic videos you can use. But also I can show you, if I can maybe share my screen.
1
I
second.
did a little research. There are software available that participants, let me open it for you and share it.
Okay,
the
that's great.
like, I mean, people can just find, and I'm happy to share it with you if you want.
Please. I've given you the
the
hosting, so you should be. There we go. It is showing up on the screen. Here
and so, like, for example, there is a lot of softwares. Like here, there is the name of few, and many are free. You can actually like just download them and use them on your computer to play music.
Wow.
So like, I'm just showing you some of them. Not all of them are free, but many of them are. So just to give you some of the, you know.
I can see them on here. Okay, Musica.
So like, there is a lot of different software people can use. So you really, nowadays, there is so much opportunity, no matter what your situation is. And let's not remember, let's not forget, let me stop this sharing.
That's okay.
So that you can see me again. Let's not forget that it's not just to improve, to improve like cognitive abilities, or always to have an aim to reduce, anxiety or stress or depression, which is very important. But even if you just want to learn a new skill, and have a new purpose in life. So, for example, a lot of research with older adults, people that are a bit older, like, shows that it's amazing what can do, in terms of new friendships, playing together, learning a new skill, having a new purpose to learn a new thing. So there are a lot of positive aspect of learning to play.
I mean, something that just a personal experience is I've been playing the drums for a long time. It must be about 30 years. I'm not that good. I'm not. If I was good, I wouldn't be doing this. So I'm not that good.
I'm sure you are. 30 years is not
but what I found, it just personally, whether this all resonates with you perhaps, but what I found when I'm playing the drums, even if I'm in a studio by myself, it is so totally absorbing, because I think, reflecting on what you said about it uses sight, sound, coordination and everything, and it's totally absorbed, that I can't think about anything else. And I found that for me to be a good, I'm going to say therapy, if you like, but it's a good bit of escapism. And I guess that's the same with any instrument. But then when I take it to play with other musicians, and we're having then to, coordinate, be in time, and all this sort of thing, that's another level of it as well. Totally absorbing. And for me, that was probably one of the biggest, I suppose, benefits. It's about to switch off all the noise that goes on. Is that part of the benefit as well, perhaps?
Absolutely. One of the really fundamental function of music, especially in some clinical condition, for example, pain sometime, or chronic pain condition, is that is a distractor. Takes you away from all the bad thoughts, from all that is worrying you on that day, and things like that. So absolutely, like, if even just listening to music can do that, you can imagine how playing music that requires your involvement, is a task, right? You need to really think what you are doing. It takes you away, which I think is also why has such a positive effect on mood and stress and anxiety. Not only because hopefully people love it and enjoy it, but
Yeah.
also because it takes your mind away and give you a distraction.
Yeah.
Also, let's not forget, is a kind of a really good workout, especially for some
Oh,
instrument.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can vouch for the drums, and I see some of these guys and gals playing the drums. It's like, wow, this is a physical workout.
Yeah, and they are
Not quite to that.
sweating like at the
Absolutely,
end.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work.
It
But
is.
interestingly, but because I know we've spoken before, we've got a grandson now in the UK, who's 2 years old, and we're obviously as concerned grandparents looking at his development. And I think the two or three things spring to mind. We're looking maybe for martial arts. I think would be great for him in terms
Yeah.
of all that sort of thing. But music. So from a parental point of view, I think it's a real shame that if you look at the slightly off subject, but the educational systems around the world, they
Yes.
don't prioritize
No.
music or dance and this type of thing, and
No,
and
absolutely.
that's a real shame, isn't it? Surely.
It is like I am experiencing it firsthand, like at the
Right.
moment,
Okay.
because one of my kids is in primary school, and actually
Yeah.
the other one will go next year.
Okay.
And actually, I've been asking more and more. Can we please have more music? Can we please have
Absolutely.
more music lesson? We are even happy to, get someone from outside come into the school and help out and so on. But it doesn't seem to be the priority. And I honestly, in a way, it frustrates me because of my interest, clear, and
Sure.
because I know how good it is
Yeah.
for development. But at the same time, I don't blame them because there is so much going on. They have so few resources and they need to prioritize. And the curriculum has been like that for forever. Like,
Yes. It's
so
figured. Yes. Yes. Exactly.
changes are always really difficult to implement. However, I do agree that it will be such a good thing. And
Yeah.
honestly, like every aspect of music, in the sense that, like, even just doing things that are fun together,
Yeah.
finding a new way of communicating. So, schools have children that could have different characteristics and different
Yeah.
ways of
Yeah.
expressing themselves. And
Absolutely.
so having a new way of communicating could sometimes solve things at the root before they even manifest.
Of
So
course.
there is a lot of reason why it should be much more of a priority in the educational system. Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll start a petition. We'll start a petition. I think we'll get it signed up.
Yes.
But I think it's something for me, and that hence I was so intrigued about your work, and I really do appreciate you sharing your work with me, because it's something I think that I've sort of intuitively understood that there's a benefit. I couldn't tell you what it was. There's a benefit with its release or something like that. And I've picked up the drumsticks for a number of years now. So people, so really, if in doubt, the thing is, I'm assuming, to sum it up to a certain extent, is play any instrument, do it reasonably regularly. You haven't got to be, so brilliant at it. Just go through the motions. That will have some benefits, and get the youngsters involved as soon as possible, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and don't lose motivation, because,
Mm,
and this is based on my experience as well. Sometimes, because I'm so busy, I cannot go to my weekly lesson, or I
sure.
cannot practice as much as I would like. And sometimes I actually go back after 2, 3 weeks, and the
Yeah.
brain has had enough time to, adjust, given what you have done before.
Yeah.
And actually, I found it easier, and things come to me more naturally, that if I went after 1 week again to the lesson, or practice more often.
Yeah.
So don't get frustrated if things don't come immediately,
Yeah.
and it takes a bit of time, because they will. And sometimes actually you think, oh, like I just got it, like
Yes.
after a few weeks,
Yeah.
even if you didn't practice. So, like, anything really that you can do, even if it's once a month,
Hmm.
is going to be good for you.
It's going to make a difference. And just really, again, this one for me, I guess, if somebody looks to this, okay, I'm going to get myself a keyboard, I'm going to buy whatever it is. Is there anything they can do to sort of benchmark their abilities now and then remeasure in sort of 3 months' time, sort of, and mark the progress, maybe anything like that they could do?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but first of all, if they're interested, they can contact me, and I'm very happy to share any measure or test that I think they could
Fabulous.
use.
Okay.
Like, especially because when you test like your ability of detecting changes in visual and auditory information, or processing the senses, you need to be more precise type of measure, which are
Sure.
not always easy to find.
Okay.
But that gave me a good idea, because we actually try to move this online because of the
Okay.
pandemic. So
Yeah.
I think we actually have now some measure that could be just shared online with people.
Wow. Okay.
So that will be quite interesting and nice.
It was.
But the other ways is also they can find online a lot of, especially if they are interested in whether their mood or stress and anxiety might have decreased, or
Yes.
maybe their memory ability or spatial abilities have increased, or things like that.
Yeah.
They can find online questionnaires and
Okay.
measures that they can do before, and then after a
And
few
do it.
weeks
Yes. Okay.
that
Yeah.
and I'm very happy to suggest some, if people are interested.
Fabulous.
So that's what I was saying, that once upon a time it would have been difficult for some people in the public actually to use some measures,
Yeah.
because we're all hard copies, paper, were difficult to assess to. But now we have
More.
really like access
Yeah.
to a lot of different things, and some are really online, in the sense that you just answer question, and then the questionnaire or the survey or the measure return to you
Yeah.
the score.
Yeah.
So they're very, very easy to use, user friendly.
Yeah.
So absolutely, there is a lot of way, depending on what people are interested to
Sure.
measure, and to see whether there has been a change or not.
I think we're just joined by your cat made an appearance.
Yeah,
I just saw something move. It's fabulous, beautiful cat.
she was very interested
Yeah.
to the topic.
No, of course, no, it's compulsory. It's compulsory. But I wonder whether people do this, and maybe they judge their, the reduction of alcohol consumption might be a measure as well, or caffeine consumption, maybe.
Anything, even
Yeah.
just like even weight loss, whatever is
Okay.
whatever is that people start to do it for,
Yeah.
or like maybe you can just measure how much less time you spend in front of the TV,
Yeah. Yes.
or
Absolutely.
whether you eat less rubbish
Yeah.
because you are more into doing this, and it's making you happy.
Yeah.
So like there is a lot of reasons. Clearly some are more shared with a lot of other
Sure.
hobbies, if you
Yeah.
like, in the sense that any hobby that make you happy, as you were speaking about martial arts.
Yeah.
I love kickboxing, for
Okay.
example.
Yeah.
And that clearly will have a lot of positive consequences as me playing drumming, but there are some that are just specific to
To the.
drumming, especially when it comes to really our brain ability to put all this information together and make sense of it. So any decision that we make every day, if our brain has refined, this process, we clearly can benefit in any task
Yes.
that we are doing. So so there are specific, benefit of playing music.
It's really it's the ultimate self-development program, isn't it? By the sound of it,
Yeah, exactly. However, by the way, it's not for everyone. There might be people that really don't want to, or think it's not for them.
Yeah.
But to be honest, as I said, you don't want to play an instrument because you think, oh, I'm not sure I will stick to it. And go and find this software. These are virtual, virtual instrument. You can start trying. If you think you're having fun, then maybe you might think next to buy.
Yes. Yes. It's a start point. And so just to sort of begin to close up a little bit, the question Lynn, my wife, asked me to ask you, so I hope it's okay. It's an interesting one, because we're talking about these cognitive abilities, and as a drummer, it's that sort of coordination and all this sort of thing. Is there any truth in the myth that women can multitask better than men? Is that true or not, or are we about the same?
Like I have no research on this.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that the studies I did with both, for example, males drummers and females drummers,
Yeah.
and I found no
No
difference.
difference. Okay,
Uh,
that's probably quite
yeah.
reassuring to all the guys listening to this, I think.
However, there is on the aspect of recognizing emotions. So
Yeah,
using a lot of different emotional cues to recognize what another person is expressing. For
yeah,
example, now I can look at your facial expression, but also I can use your voice intonation and all
yeah.
that to understand that hopefully you are enjoying this, right?
Yes, yes.
But like that, I know that the group is in, I think he moved away now from Italy, but he used to be in Italy.
Okay.
Now he's in Brussels, maybe.
Yeah.
Like a group, a researcher showed that women can use this information better than
Really? Oh, okay. Okay. So,
so tell your
okay.
wife
I won't
that
tell her.
the only
I'm not going to tell. I'm going to edit this bit out. I'm going to edit this out. I'm not
but
having
this
that.
has nothing to do with music. It's
No.
just
Okay.
a gender kind of difference.
Okay.
But as it comes of the whether musicians with years of experience
Yeah.
differ from non-musician in the same way if they are of different genders,
Yes.
no.
Okay.
I
Right.
found
Okay.
exactly the same benefit in
Okay.
all, across all genders.
Okay, that bit I'll keep. The women being better, I'll get rid of that nose. So Karen, look, it's been a joy speaking with you. I really do appreciate your time. We are, as you know, with your support and collaboration, we're going to be delivering a number of workshops that are going to be using instruments and drums and engaging and using some of your research with
Yeah,
your permission to bring this, to life a little bit. So anybody watching, please come along to that. I am going to get Karin to come along to one of these workshops and show an
that would
appearance
be
as well,
lovely.
which will be fabulous. But if anybody wants to contact you and look into more information, what's the best way of getting in touch with
Just email me. I'm
you?
very
Okay.
good keeping up with my emails.
Okay. All right.
And
Perfect.
so just email me, tell me if you want, either to collaborate to
Yep.
something,
Yeah.
or if you just want to have input because you want to measure something before or after you are practicing with a musical instrument, just
Okay.
let me know. I'll be happy to help.
Fabulous. And would it be okay if I put your email address on the link below
Yeah,
the video? That'd be okay.
yeah, of course, of course.
Fabulous. Okay. So again, thank you. I really appreciate your time. It's fabulously interesting for me because I do play. I don't say I play the drums. I play with the drums. But really, that's so I appreciate. It's been really helpful, insightful for me. I hope for the people as well. So thank you, and look out for the workshops. Please get in touch with Karen. Just say thank you and say hello.
Yeah.
I think will be
It
great.
was
So
my pleasure. It was really fun, and I will never get tired to say how good it is to play an
fabulous.
instrument.
All right, well, great. Thank you. And we'll speak again anyway. And I look forward to updates as we go along. But thank you for now.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone. Bye bye.